How many times have you found yourself worrying about what others think of you, especially when they hate you for no reason? It's one of the most uncomfortable feelings, being disliked without knowing why. It can leave you wondering, did I do something wrong? Or what's wrong with me? But what if I told you it might not be such a bad thing? What if, instead of spiraling into self-doubt, you could learn to let go of that fear and embrace the idea that not everyone is going to like you? And that's perfectly okay. The truth is, many of us spend an overwhelming amount of time and energy worrying about the opinions of others, especially when we feel unjustly hated or misunderstood. Society often encourages us to seek approval, to fit in, and to be liked by everyone we meet. But what if the constant pursuit of approval is actually doing more harm than good to our emotional well-being? The truth is, it's impossible to please everyone, and the constant chase for approval can leave us feeling exhausted, insecure, and disconnected from who we really are. So, should you care if people hate you, especially when there's no clear reason? At times, it's easy to internalize these feelings of dislike. But what if the hate others direct at you isn't really about you at all? This feeling, this hate, is often more about them than it is about you. It's driven by their own inner struggles, and understanding this could be the first step to freeing ourselves from its grip. But what's really behind this unwarranted hatred? Why do some people direct negativity at us without a clear reason? Let's take a closer look at the psychology behind it and how we can use this understanding to protect our peace. When you find yourself the target of unwarranted hatred, it can be easy to take it personally. After all, it feels like a direct attack on who you are. But in reality, most of this hatred has little to do with you at all. Instead, it often stems from the insecurities, jealousy, or unresolved issues of the person directing it toward you. As Robert Greene explains in The Psychology of Human Behavior, hate can frequently be a reflection of the hater's own struggles, not yours. When someone dislikes you without a clear reason, it's often because they are projecting their own feelings of inadequacy onto you. This concept aligns with the scientific principles behind social comparison theory. According to this theory, people constantly measure their worth by comparing themselves to others. This comparison can breed jealousy and resentment, especially when they feel they are falling short in some way. When they see someone they perceive as doing better, living differently, or even just having something they want, it's easy for them to redirect their own dissatisfaction into hatred toward that person. But what's important to understand here is that this hatred reflects their inner struggles, not your flaws. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. This is a reminder that the hate others project onto us doesn't define our worth or happiness. It's not a reflection of who we are, but of the unresolved issues and insecurities of the person projecting it. The hardest part is that it's often not even something you can control, but it's crucial to recognize that the hate you're receiving is more about them than it is about you. By keeping this perspective, we can start to detach ourselves from their projections and understand that their anger is theirs to deal with, not ours to carry. Now that we understand the root causes of this hate, the next step is taking control. How do we stop letting the opinions of others steal our peace? Let's dive into how emotional detachment can be the key to freedom. One of the most empowering ways to deal with unwarranted hate is to stop caring about others' opinions. When we emotionally detach from what others think, we free ourselves from unnecessary stress. This emotional detachment isn't about becoming indifferent or cold. It's about taking control over how external factors affect our inner world. The truth is, when we constantly react to others' judgments or dislike, we give away our power. We allow their opinions to dictate our mood, our actions, and ultimately, our happiness. In doing so, we let go of our ability to control our lives, handing that control over to them. This shift from external validation to internal validation is key to reclaiming our power. When we stop looking for approval from others and begin to look inward for our self-worth, we break free from the hold that hate and judgment have on us. As Brené Brown points out, Owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing that we'll ever do. When we internalize our sense of self-worth, we are no longer vulnerable to others' perceptions or opinions. Instead, we stand firm in the belief that we are enough as we are, and that the opinions of others do not define us. As Buddha wisely said, "You will not be punished for your anger, you will be punished by your anger." The same applies to hate. When we care too much about being disliked, we invite unnecessary emotional turmoil into our lives. The more we obsess over others' negativity, the more it controls us. The hate doesn't stop at just being a negative feeling. It's a chain that binds us, keeping us tied to the opinions and judgments of others. The moment we let go of this attachment, we break free from the hold it has on us, and we regain our power. It's not about dismissing others' opinions completely, but about recognizing that they don't have to dictate our emotional state. Scientific studies on self-determination theory by Ryan and Deci support this idea. They emphasize that emotional independence, being able to make choices based on your own values and not others' expectations, leads to greater happiness and fulfillment. When we stop relying on external approval, we develop a stronger sense of autonomy, which is essential for long-term emotional well-being. The more we detach from the need to seek validation, the more we can focus on our own path, making decisions that are aligned with our true selves, rather than what others think of us. Take the example of Steve Jobs, a person who was often criticized and misunderstood, especially during the early days of Apple. Jobs didn't conform to societal expectations or follow traditional paths to success. He faced relentless hate and criticism for his vision, yet he continued to push forward, unwavering in his commitment to his ideas. His ability to ignore the negative voices and stay true to his vision not only transformed Apple, but also led him to become one of the most influential figures in the tech industry. Jobs didn't let hate derail him. Instead, he used it as fuel to move forward and create something truly groundbreaking. It's not enough to simply stop caring about hate. The real power comes when we learn how to handle it gracefully. So how do we respond when negativity comes our way? Let's explore the art of responding, or not responding, to hate in a way that preserves our peace. To handle hate gracefully, it's crucial to understand the difference between responding and reacting. When we react, we're often driven by impulse, defensiveness, anger, or fear. This kind of response comes from a place of vulnerability, where we feel the need to defend ourselves, often letting emotions take over. But when we choose to respond instead of react, we take control of the situation. We're no longer at the mercy of our emotions. Instead, we act from a place of strength and clarity, which helps us maintain our inner peace. As Epictetus wisely said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This quote encapsulates the essence of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, as Daniel Goleman outlines, is the ability to recognize and manage our own emotions while understanding and responding to others' emotions in a healthy way. When we understand our emotional triggers, we can consciously decide not to be controlled by them. Rather than getting caught up in the anger or resentment that hate may bring, we can choose to respond thoughtfully, or even choose not to respond at all. Choosing to respond with compassion, or sometimes simply choosing not to engage at all, disarms hate. By not reacting, we shift the power back to ourselves, and the negative energy directed at us loses its impact. Sometimes not responding is the most powerful way to handle hate. By not engaging, we avoid fueling the fire, and instead let it burn out on its own. This approach allows us to maintain our peace and protect our emotional well-being. Think about famous athletes like Michael Jordan. Throughout his career, he faced harsh criticism and hate from both the public and the media. But instead of letting those negative comments define him, Jordan used them as motivation. Every insult, every judgment, he transformed into fuel for his drive to improve. This mindset led him to become one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Similarly, many of us can transform the negative energy we receive into stepping stones for our own growth. Just like Jordan, we can use the hate we face as a catalyst for improvement, rather than allowing it to hold us back. We've talked about how to respond to hate, but what about protecting ourselves from it in the first place? How do we ensure we're not letting negativity seep into our emotional world? One of the most effective ways to protect our emotional well-being is by setting clear emotional boundaries. Boundaries aren't about shutting others out. They're about protecting our energy and maintaining control over how we allow others to influence us. When we establish boundaries, we consciously decide which behaviors and opinions we'll accept and which we won't. Without them, we leave ourselves vulnerable to being overwhelmed by negativity and hate from others. This allows their emotions to dictate our own, taking away our peace. Research on emotional boundaries shows that people who set clear limits on what they're willing to tolerate are not only better at managing stress, but they also have healthier relationships and higher emotional resilience. By choosing not to internalize hate or criticism, we free ourselves from unnecessary emotional baggage and reduce the risk of anxiety and depression. But it's not just about protection. It's about how we can transform negative emotions, like anger or frustration, into something empowering. Instead of letting criticism or hatred consume us, we can choose to redirect that energy towards something positive, like self-improvement, goal setting, or even problem solving. This shift in perspective allows us to not just block negativity, but use it as fuel for personal growth. For example, those who consciously distance themselves from critical or toxic individuals tend to fare better in maintaining their mental health. They don't let negativity seep into their daily lives, and as a result, they can focus on their own goals and values without being distracted by the judgments of others. On the other hand, those who don't set boundaries often find themselves constantly battling negative thoughts and self-doubt, which takes a toll on their overall well-being. The key here is that by practicing emotional detachment and transforming negative emotions, we not only protect ourselves from harmful influences, but also empower ourselves to live a life that aligns with our values, not the negativity of others. The act of setting boundaries is not about isolating ourselves, but rather about giving ourselves the space we need to thrive emotionally. By protecting our peace, we can continue living authentically, unaffected by the chaos others try to impose on us. We can take that energy we once gave to hate or negativity and use it to fuel our own journey, letting it drive us toward personal goals and positive change. Now that we know how to protect our peace, let's look at the long-term impact. What happens when we stop allowing others' hate to affect us? How does this shift lead to personal freedom and growth over time? The truth is, the longer we hold on to the negativity of others, the less energy we have for our own growth and happiness. When we stop caring about unwarranted hate, we create space for personal freedom and growth. Every moment we spend consumed by the thoughts and opinions of others is a moment stolen from our own potential. When we stop giving energy to hate, we have more energy to invest in our personal development, relationships, and long-term goals. We begin to prioritize our values, our aspirations, and our sense of self, rather than being weighed down by the judgment of others. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "He who fights with monsters should be careful, lest he thereby become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." This is a powerful reminder that engaging with hatred and negativity only feeds more negativity. When we focus on the hate directed at us, we become entangled in that energy, losing sight of our own path. But when we release that energy, we open the door to personal freedom. The more we detach from others' judgments, the more we are free to focus on what truly matters to us. Scientific research supports this too. Studies on emotional freedom show that people who learn to let go of the emotional weight of negativity experience lower levels of anxiety, stress, and physical tension. Without the constant burden of caring about others' opinions, we have more mental clarity and emotional space to focus on things that foster well-being and growth. By shifting our energy from negativity to meaningful pursuits, we create a life aligned with our values. This freedom from the need for validation opens the door to true happiness. But ultimately, the question remains, should we really care if people hate us for no reason? The truth is, no. It's time to embrace your authenticity, Let go of the weight of others' judgments and live a life that's true to you. When you stop caring about being hated, you start living with freedom and peace. This freedom doesn't mean dismissing others' feelings or being indifferent to the world around you. It means you're no longer chained to their opinions, able to make decisions based on your own values and goals. When you embrace this freedom, you realize that your worth isn't determined by the love or hate of others. It's defined by your own self-acceptance and personal growth. Now, take a moment and reflect. What would your life look like if you stopped letting other people's opinions affect your happiness? Imagine how much more peace and clarity you'd have in every moment, knowing that you're enough just as you are. Now it's your turn. What's one thing you can do today to stop caring about someone else's judgment? Drop a comment below with, "I am enough," to start your journey toward emotional freedom. Let's commit together to live authentically and let go of the need for approval. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more powerful insights like this. Together, let's continue our journey toward peace, empowerment, and true self-acceptance.